welcome to the broadcast, my dear old fruits. It's the first broadcast of October, so in that spirit, it's time for me to remind you to subscribe to the channel if you found yourself accidentally unsubscribed. And it's time for me to thank you for the goodwill shown to me in September, which was rotten for me. My ceiling caved in, all my plans went awry. But thank you for your goodwill, a few tip jar treats that were received, and your fruity thoughts, all very sincerely and gratefully received. Thank you so much. The ivy outside has begun to blush crimson for October. That's actually why I wore this silk shirt in similar colours here. It's looking a bit Christmassy actually, but it's supposed to read autumnal. Now, I'll read out one of dozens of comments that I received informing me that my insights regarding the meeting between Prince Harry and the King were shared on a YouTube show, Dan Wootton's show.
Talking about the brilliant YouTuber River, who receives regular whispers through palace walls. They were the King's words. Here is River revealing that information.
Sentiments from the King were overheard, and the words and the sentiments that came from the King were along the lines of, he's not listening. But one line that was given to me verbatim was, it's not going in. This is the sort of mood that I'm told the King was trying to express to those in his vicinity.
Of course. Absolutely right. He doesn't listen. And it's very, very frustrating for the King.
I'll read this comment by Mildred Fierce, who said, Dear River, I've noticed over the years how the whispers you receive and generously share prove to be very solid in the passage of time. Not once have you led us up the garden path with fantastical conspiracy theories. Your insight was acknowledged on Dan Wootton Outspoken, the man who broke the Mexit story in the first place. Do you know Dan? He is friends with many royal YouTubers, and so I thought you might have brushed shoulders. Spill the beans. Do you have a relationship with Dan Wootton? Mildred Fierce? No. No, I do not know Daniel Wootton. Yeah, Mr. Wootton and his team and many across the industry and beyond, as I've told you on many occasions, have come to understand that my insights and the information given to me is reliable, and more often than not it proves to be sure and sure-footed again and again and again. But when I offer the crumbs of information to you that I'm able to do, I do it in the spirit of advising you to take it with a pinch of salt. Do what you will with it. Take it or leave it, my dear. Just as I'd advise you to do the same for any source of information. I can only do my best to obtain good information and deliver it to you in a responsible way. More often than not, I need to protect other people when I'm doing it, so I can't just spill all the splashy tea in the way that I'd love to do it, in the way that I might do it if I was sitting down with you for a cosy dram in a London tavern, shall we say, and things would get a little bit extra spicy and I'd be able to spill a bit more tea. But you know, one has a responsibility on this sort of forum. I leave the realm of fantasy and conspiracy theory for others to profit from. You know, that's not my jurisdiction, but I just do my best with the facts I deal in, the facts that I'm given. But thank you for bringing it to my attention. Now, Julie Andrews, Dame Julie Andrews, turned 90 years old yesterday. Isn't that something very special? Just like me, she's practically perfect in every way. When I was a child, I had a tape measure made for me with my precise measurement at the time marked as Mary Poppins is. Practically perfect in every way. Ah, that was me. I also had a black hat made with cherries and daisies like hers, a pinafore, a carpet bag, the whole kit and caboodle, my dear. Well, Mary Poppins and The Sound of Music captured our hearts. Victor Victoria is not my cup of tea, I'm afraid. But the other movie of hers, which always captured my heart, was Thoroughly Modern Millie. Watched it hundreds of times. Wonderful. One of my favourite characters of all time, actually, Mrs. Mears from that. And her saying was, oh, pook. And a sibling and I use that expression all the time to this day when something goes wrong, because this particular sibling has never sworn in front of me. I think that they rarely ever do. Excuse me. Rarely ever do. But never, ever in front of me. I can't say the same for me. But rather like my own parents, actually, they don't swear in front of me. So we say pook instead. It goes down a treat. I think she was the original My Fair Lady, wasn't she, Julie Andrews, in the original production anyway, with Rex Harrison before the film came to pass with Audrey Hepburn. But if you look on YouTube, you can see her original performances from all that time ago. They also have the original archive footage of Julie Andrews as a child performing for King George VI. Isn't that quite astounding? This is one of the joys of YouTube, which we take for granted. I'm sure it's full of a lot of sophistry, but it really is the most fabulous archive for all kinds of things going back decades or centuries. And people are often torn between Julie Andrews or Audrey Hepburn and their rendition of Eliza Doolittle. I enjoy both of them, but rather like the role of Nancy in Oliver, the musical Oliver. I truly believe that only a Cockney born, or at least someone from those parts of London, raised in London, can really nail that part. So I don't think that Julie or Audrey were exceptionally well cast in that particular role, because to those of us who are au fait with the real authenticity of a Cockney voice and accent, there's always something a little bit jarring to me anyway, that lacks authenticity. So that's something that I'd like to see, although of course there aren't really any Cockney accents, especially the Cockney accent of old, left in London now. You mainly hear it in the diaspora of London, the sort of exodus that happened post-war in neighbouring counties such as Essex, especially in the elderly of counties like Essex and Kent and some of the sort of estuary home counties. You still hear the ring of it there, the twang of it there, and it's so delicious, but rarely in London these days. It's now a new sort of modern hybrid affair. But that crystalline purity of trill that Julie Andrews possessed in the voice, and her ability to project that wholesome goodness without too much schmaltz, it has to be said, which is quite a tricky balance to snatch, is a singular talent of hers. And she has been a true professional, universally adored. Who is loved more than Julie Andrews? A living legend, though in real life, of course, she's really rather naughty, in the best possible way. A mouth like a sewer, behind the scenes. The air is thick with humorous expletives whenever she's around, I can tell you. A mouth like a sailor. But she's been rather absent from the kingdom throughout her life. She's an Englisher, of course, but she was seized by America, fell in love with an American, of course, Blake Edwards. So she was adopted by America, beloved by America and the world, but she remains quintessentially English, of course, and she is the pride of our kingdom. So I wanted to pay a little tribute to her. Julie Andrews, may your 10th decade sparkle with the same joy that you've given all of us for many decades, my dear. Yes, Julie Andrews. And it's also the 75th anniversary of Snoopy. You know, Charlie Schultz, the Woodstock character, was always my favourite, actually, little Woodstock, very sweet. In the previous broadcast, we spoke about the ex-wife of Colin Firth, who was virtue signalling all over the place, ripping up her MBE certificate and returning it for various offences that she thinks the king has committed. Well, we've got another fruitcake in the bowl, my dear, another Fruit Loop, virtue signalling away like a broken Belisha beacon. So puritanical that it's worth a mention. Now, this involves the Yorks and Newton Sarah, but what I'm speaking of here is not about the York question itself, so I don't really care one way or the other what your thoughts are there. But Natalie Dormer is the woman I want to bring to your attention, because she has donated her wages to charities who work with victims of abuse, which is always noble. There's no argument about that. But this is after she played Fergie in a new television drama called The Lady, which is based on the life of one of Fergie's dressers, Jane Andrews, who went on to kill her lover. So it was a life of scandal. But this actress, Natalie Dormer, she played Fergie. She played Fergie in this television show. And she's making all this great big fuss in response to the so-called scandalous, but really just plain stupid emails between Sarah York and Jeffrey Epstein 15 years ago, or whenever it was, when Epstein is said to have become threatening towards Fergie and the Yorks after she publicly disavowed him and was quoted referring to the word paedophilia and to children while she was disavowing him. Well, this rankled Mr. Epstein apparently, and the email that Sarah then sent him was very obsequious in its tone, and it was rather crawling, in fact, and it appeared to contradict her disavowalment of him in public. However, it is claimed that Sarah York only did so in great fear and under terror that Epstein was going to ruin her family, and the claim is that she was buttering him up in this email to protect the wider family. Well, I don't care what you think about all of that, and I don't care what Natalie Dormer thinks about all of that, or about Sarah York or Jeffrey Epstein. Sarah York is a calamity, as we've discussed on many occasions. It is innate in her. She is a calamity. It follows her around, however. Anyone who knows her will tell you she has enormously redeeming features on a personal level, with a very generous nature and spirit, which turns foolish at times, and this is where the calamity begins. Epstein, of course, a very dark character, no question. But Natalie Dormer made this great big announcement saying, since completing the project, new information has come to light that makes it impossible for me to reconcile my values with Sarah Ferguson's behaviour, which I believe is inexcusable. For that reason, I will not be taking part in promotion of the project in keeping with my commitment to the well-being of children. Oh, isn't she grand? Isn't she so pure and virtuous? Natalie, darling, failing to promote the lady is between you and your employer. I don't know what the contract says, but you were never employed to promote the Duchess of York in any of her guises. You're the hired help, love, and you need to start understanding that and understanding your place. You're a jobbing actor, and you should be glad that you're not resting, which is part of the terminology here in the kingdom. When an actor is out of work, they are resting. This is the elegant way of saying it. And you should be glad of the fact that you're not on permanent rest, my dear, because this isn't professional to go on in this virtue signalling manner. If you've come to the conclusion that Sarah York's behaviour is inexcusable, then many agree with you, and that's absolutely fine. But you're acting a role, lovey. You are not endorsing a human being in the doing of that acting of the role. How pathetic. And Sarah York, by the way, didn't desire or require your endorsement. Do you hanker some sort of desire to only be cast in the roles of spotlessly clean do-gooders? Is that why you went into the business? Pollyanna, is that the sort of role you hanker for? Or Fraulein Maria? The villain of the piece is the best part, darling. Learn to relish it and understand that it is acting. The clue is in the title of the career, isn't it? You are not supposed to be subsuming the person and all of their flaws. You are playing an interpretation of a person via a writer and a director. The reason I bring this up is because it's a reflection of the narcissism we see today in people of this profession and in many industries these days. The narcissism of it is absolutely stunning, breathtaking. And I'm not saying that she can't donate all of her wages to charity if she feels so compelled to do so. By all means, you know, if she's stupid enough to do that for such a sanctimonious reason, then fine, do it. But do it privately. You don't need to parade it around to elevate yourself. Were you really that petrified of cancellation for being associated with Fergie's name, simply for paying her for the backlash that you were anticipating that you might receive for playing the part of Fergie? Give me a hustler like Sarah York any day over this sort of simpering do-goodery. To be quite honest, you won't. Think yourself fortunate that you're employed at all, Natalie Dormer, and do what you like with your paycheck. Wipe your ass with it for all I care, but stick the pious, sanctimonious virtue signalling where the arsewipes are flushed and where the sun don't shine. Do you understand? Now, you might recall Prince Harry's impersonation of a royal official a couple of weeks ago when he marauded into Ukraine and was tottering about, but the dignified thing to have done would have been to rein himself in from behaving as if he is a world statesman and leave that sort of business to those who actually reign, Harry, or to those who actually do the official bidding for those that reign. It is so vulgar to maraud about in the way that he does. And the Princess Royal demonstrated solidarity with Ukrainian children and their families, and she delivered a sealed envelope with the royal crest of scarlet vouchsafed from the princess to Mr. Zelensky, which is probably a missive from the king, and then respects were paid at the children's memorial, placing little toy bears with Ukraine's First Lady. At a rehabilitation centre, Her Royal Highness met veterans who were returning from the front line. She witnessed a canine therapy session where there are veterans who have suffered injuries and all kinds of disabilities who are looked after. So as you can see, she was dispatched on very serious business, but there was time for play in the coming days, because then royal regality met racy randiness at this workshop of Edge Beyond with jewel-encrusted lingerie. Ooh! Ooh la la! The founder, Naomi DeHaan, said that Princess Anne has a deep understanding of fashion. Well, she is a style icon, isn't she? But she said that Anne was very cool, very interested in everything, and she came across as very feminist. Perish the thought. Well, I reckon Sir Timothy had a splendid time with the goodie bag, don't you, my dears? No, not playing dress-up. The lingerie, my dear. No, naughty, naughty, not solo, you understand, but with the princess. Oh, I'm sure they dug right into that goodie bag of lingerie and toys and all kinds, and clutched blooms of ochre for the harvest, surrounded by scanties in black and lusty red, and she unveiled her knickers. No, she didn't mind it, not her knickers. She unveiled a plaque, and I'm so sorry about that. And did you notice the yellow piping to the lapels? Isn't it a gorgeous flair for style and detail that the princess has? Anne was visiting in her role as a president of the UK Fashion and Textile Association. There was a discussion on the strength of wired bras that is required for ladies with big boobies, the scaffolding and upholstery, you understand, of the bosom for buxom ladies, and corset making without the use of whalebone. And next thing you know, Princess Anne will be rocking up at an Anne Summers party. A Princess Anne Summers party, oh dear. Can you imagine, my dear? I don't even know if there's still a thing. You know, Anne Summers was named after the secretary of the founder of Anne Summers. I'm actually reading a biography of his life. He was known as Dandy Kim, but perhaps we can discuss that another time. Very interesting character on the London scene, but he had a secretary by the name of Annice, Annice, and Anne Summers was named for her, although they fell out soon after her name was used for the company. But went on to be a very well-known name, didn't it? Associated with all kinds of things. But who is that through the Princess Royal's window that we see? Who's behind the curtain? Is it the Wizard of Oz? Oh, no, it's Big Brother the King. There he is. King Coursey Socks, nevertheless. Ah, 'twas not her window and drape, but a new portrait unveiled at the Scottish Parliament by the beloved sister Anne. This was captured by Millie Pilkington in the sunken garden at Balmoral Castle last autumn, and the portrait shows His Majesty dressed in the King Charles III tartan, holding a handcrafted stick which was gifted by the May Games. It will sit alongside a portrait of Queen Elizabeth, which was unveiled by Princess Anne 13 years ago. Do you see how the circle turns? Isn't the tartan and the cosy socks beautiful? I can't see William being quite so eager to dress up like this, but I sorely hope that I'm mistaken, because it would be a great shame if he doesn't follow the tradition, wouldn't it, our King William V? But King Charles III visited an exhibition of paintings of the landscape of Romania at the Garrison Chapel, and as we've discussed, King Charles owns a number of properties in Romania, but especially a guest house. A very nice one in the hills of Transylvania that you can book and find online and rent his room. He knows the people and the land of Romania very well indeed. But this chapel is the exhibition space for the King's Trust, and the King was there to see the new exhibition Marie of Romania, Artist Queen, because it's the 150th anniversary of her birth, which preceded a very interesting life, and a couple of the king's own watercolours, painted by his own sausage-fingered hand, are featured, and I feel dreadfully mean saying this, because I've looked over his watercolours on a number of occasions, and I don't especially rate his talent as a watercolourist, but he doesn't pretend to be anything other than an amateur. The thing is that his drawing, for some reason, reads to me as so unsure to my eyes. So perhaps it's the drawing that I struggle with rather than the watercolouring abilities myself. But as you know, I own a drawing. I'm lucky enough to say I own a drawing that the king did as a child when he was sort of between the ages of 5 and 8. I've shown you on a couple of occasions, but I own that drawing that he did for Prince Philip. And I actually prefer those illustrations that he did as a child because he was very good. He was very good. But I love the fact that he's enthusiastic about it, nevertheless, you know. And we all have different tastes, don't we? But he raises millions in the selling of his watercolour works anyway, so it's all very good. Prince George has got it. Prince George, the young king in the making, has got it. Well, the king hobbled along in the glorious and mystic dapperly sunshine of late September at a reception at Clarence House to meet representatives from charities and organisations that have benefited from the King Charles III Charitable Fund through its partnership with Waitrose. And Poppy was there, this cow, an award-winning breeding cow, disgraced themselves despite looking like a very, very fine cow. Poppy trampled at the king's hedges, knocked over a table, and after the king had just finished talking with Poppy, Poppy urinated on the pathway. Behaving just like Prince Harry, if you ask me. Do you think Poppy's been taking lessons from Prince Harry? I don't know, but of course the king took it all in very good humour. He was a countryman, and he cut a Waitrose fruit cake. And there was a very moving investiture ceremony presided over by the Prince of Wales on the king's behalf at Windsor Castle, where Gary Oldman received a knighthood. Rise, Sir Gary! Rise, Sir Gary! And he was recognised for services to drama through the King's Birthday Honours. Very successful actor, long time coming. And he spoke about how moving the whole ceremony was. He said that even compared to the Oscar ceremony, that paled in comparison to the emotions that he felt and the feeling of great honour that being awarded this knighthood. Samantha Norton, another beloved actress of the kingdom, was awarded OBE for services to drama and to charity, and we send them all our hearty congratulations, don't we, my dear? Now, as for Prince Edward, well, you can swing your hips now, Princey Kins, and do the locomotion with me, because Prince Edward, Duke of Edinburgh, has been doing the locomotion celebrating 200 years of the Stockton and Darlington Railway. The Duke of Edinburgh visited County Durham to mark the 200th anniversary of the first public passenger train journey. Think of that, 200 years. It's quite interesting, you know, because this trip of 26 miles is the one that actually led to the birth of the modern railway as we know it today. Yes, the first public journey on the Stockton and Darlington Railway took place on the 27th of September 1825. It was called Locomotion Number 1, and it pulled wagons of coal and goods and a carriage called Experiment, and it was carrying the world's first fare-paying passengers to take a journey driven by a steam locomotive. Do you notice the glories of empire? Do you notice the fruits from which the world benefits? To name but one. In this case, steam locomotive. Can you imagine a world without trains? You erase the British Empire? No trains. You see, that was England. But actually the history stretches back further in time to 1804, because the first steam locomotive came about by the Englisher Richard Trevithick. Prince Edward travelled on a replica of Locomotion 1 alongside his beloved brother-in-law, Sir Timothy Lawrence, in his role as a chair of the Science Museum Group. Another visit abroad for their Majesties, a slightly boring one. The Majesties will undertake a state visit to the Holy See in late October, joining Pope Leo in celebrating the Jubilee year. And a papal Jubilee occurs every 25 years, and it's a special time for the Catholic Church. This visit will also celebrate the ecumenical work by the Church of England and the Catholic Church, reflecting the Jubilee's theme of walking together as pilgrims of hope. Well, the only Jubilee that I'm interested in that really excites me these days is the Radish Day Jubilee, with our Moki down at Fraggle Rock. At Balmoral, the Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of Australia was received in audience by his king, and guess what? Despite being an avowed Republican, in favour of ditching the monarchy, as our Anthony Albanese is, following the meeting, our Tony said that he had no intention of holding a referendum on the matter. He said there are more pressing concerns to attend to. Isn't that something? Actually, he speaks about their majesties with great admiration and respect, despite his Republican leanings. That is diplomacy, it is civility, and it's the royal spirit. So channel the royal spirit, stay fruity, and always on royal duty. Toodle pip.